We're a two-form-entry primary school of 446 pupils. 77 of those are children with SEND. 45 of those are children who are very complex. We have a resource provision here, NAS accredited. We are the founding member of the Bowling Trust. We've just very recently had our second Ofsted inspection. We are double outstanding, where the Tollgate resource provision was deemed to be highly effective. I think we got to a point on the Tollgate journey that we wanted the resource provision to reflect the same standard that was apparent in the main school. So from that point, we took on a teaching and learning review, and we recognised that the resource provision had to reflect the learning of the children and not just the social care aspect, which is equally important. But then from that point, we decided that we needed a whole new approach to our resource provision.
In my role as curriculum lead here at Tollgate, in terms of standards, EFL has been integral to everything we do, from our curriculum adaptation, from our pathways for our children in mainstream and SEND. It's really helped our teachers, it's helped our teaching assistants, it has given direction and flow to our teaching, it's helped our teachers achieve the targets for their children, and also for our parents it's been incredible in terms of knowing what to do at home and bridging that gap between home learning and curriculum learning in school.
Evidence for learning is used particularly to capture the challenges that children face and the successes that children face. The evidence that is used to have reflective inquiry in our planning meetings so that we can really understand the next steps for children's learning.
What we found with evidence for learning, because it's child-centred, it deals with children's abilities rather than disabilities.
Fantastic.
And that's our starting point, because this is about learning. It's not containing or giving children things to do. It's about presenting their learning with as much challenge as these children would have as their mainstream peers. And that is our starting point.
And I think it's really helped the teachers understand what the individual needs of the children in terms of starting points. It's also helped the teachers to understand where the learning needs to start and finish in order for the children to meet the targets in a particular curriculum area. So it's just what it's done across the school in both the resource provision and mainstream and the senior leadership team is give us complete clarity.
We have a very specific curriculum that we work on that's very adaptable for each child, and we can then progress this through the evidence by videoing and taking pictures, and that helps us send it home to parents so they can see the successes that he's actually achieving, and we can evidence that and use that in his annual review at the end of the year.
And I think what's great as well is the fact that the parents are able to capture both sides. So not only seeing David in mainstream, but also seeing the work that's happening in the resource provision. So they're able to get the best of both worlds, yeah.
Parents can upload and send us videos, and we, in my classroom, like to do retail. So on Monday mornings we do weekend news, which is really nice because we can upload any and print off any pictures that the children have done over the weekend that parents have uploaded, and put it into their book, and the children can write about it. Some of our children, if they have difficulty and don't have the skills to write just yet, we also discuss the photos, and we get the children to match maybe pictures of their parents in the photo with them. And children really like the fact that it's a cross between home life and school life.
Teachers have viewed evidence for learning as an aid and a support to their classroom teaching and to their practice. It's helped them, as I say, given them direction. It's been a scaffold, it's been an assessment tool, but also it's a great communication tool, and it's bringing fluidity to the classroom practice.
As you can see, our curriculum is very topic based and focuses on a book every 2 weeks. So our book this week is The Zoo, and we will sequence that in their literacy learning, the communication, and it incorporates art, cognition. So we can evidence this by going into the app and taking photos and sending home photos for parents to see what the book is this week and how we are incorporating it within our learning. As you can see, this week we're doing Dear Zoo. Send a comment to Mum explaining what the book is. Take videos and pictures of all the different activities that they do during the week, and we can link it to all the different frameworks and what they're working towards. So if they're working towards EYFF's frameworks, pre-Key Stage standards, Key Stage 1 standards, certs, it's amazing. You can add and take away any framework you like, and you can also tag it to all the different EHCP targets that are specifically for that child. And it gets amazing feedback from parents as they can also reply back to what they see. And as you can see in this one, the child has been reading the same book at home.
EFL has definitely raised our expectations as a staff team because we now know what the children can do. We've got more evidence of what the children can do, and this in turn, that has raised expectations with the parents, because on a daily basis, the parents can see what their children are able to do. So they come into school, they're really happy to see the videos and when the children meet the targets, and it gives them a sense of, because some of the children that we have at Tollgate are non-verbal. So they're not able to go home and say, oh, you know, Mum, I did this today at school. So what EFL does is it shows the parents what the children are doing that they can't say at home. So it gives the parents such a sense of pride, a sense of, they feel part of the school community. It's almost like they have a daily parents' evening where they're able to come in and really, say, I've seen this on EFL, it's been incredible.
Being able to inform the parents of what their children are able to do helps them to then continue what we learn here outside of school. It's so important that we're all singing off the same page, if so to speak. Children do have a lack of access of playgrounds and things. A lot of the school parks and things like that are all getting knocked down and built upon, and they live in blocks, and it's difficult for children and parents to get to places like that. So knowing that their children are able to do certain things here and then they can see it on the video, it absolutely helps them to they say, okay, I know my child is able to do this, we can go here, we can go and do this, and I can do some of these things with my own children.
So Darren, that actually fits in with the expectations of the trust, that we have high expectations and we're very ambitious for our children.
Yeah, absolutely. It's massively important. It's massively important. I think if we are all working together, which we do, it helps everybody, not just the parents. It helps us with planning, it helps parents understanding, and it helps the teachers also. And
particularly it also helps the family support officers, because they get access to what is available to parents in the holiday clubs, the SEND holiday clubs, and they disseminate that information to the parents. So a lot of our SEND children take up the offer of what the local authority is offering in the holiday time. We communicate that to parents through the app and through our coffee morning sessions. So parents are able to see. We also use the video evidence to encourage parents, because some of our parents are reticent to take their children out because they don't really, they don't have the confidence. And once they see that their children are making great progress in the areas of physical development and sports, they're now encouraged to complete the application form and participate on what's on offer in the holidays.
Absolutely.
Especially my family's had a wider impact with grandparents, because while Albert might struggle to tell my wife's parents what he's done in school, we can show them evidence on the app to say he's done this. They didn't believe he's used the high ropes at Fairplay House. There's a photograph of him harnessed at the top, and it's just like, you can see the joy it brings in the wider family as well, not just in us as parents, but grandparents, uncles and aunts. So it's really makes a difference.
And another thing, I think, as a parent, we only hear like, oh, they had a good day, or we don't see, we're not in there. So sometimes when I'm a bit excited to get a picture, and then I'm like, ooh, wonder what they... And then sometimes you see them all standing together, all of them, when you see all of them, and then you're like, oh, they're all a little family, they're a unit, and then that melts your heart, and you think, you know what, I don't know why I'm stressing over things. So it's good for education, but it's also quite, soothing. You get to see the other angle of things.
I definitely say as a family we feel more empowered, because our son has almost two different personas sometimes. He has a home persona and a school persona. And while we find it difficult to get information out from him about what he's done in school, what he's enjoyed, hasn't enjoyed, with the use of the app we can actually see what's worked, what hasn't, and then if there's things that haven't really worked, we can explore why. And it could be then you can link it with input from third parties or professionals that can then work with the school and with parents to actually help and improve the child's needs. So it doesn't just work with the family and the school, but it can have sort of arms and reach out to use with professionals as well.
EFL really includes parents in the whole conversation that's going on, and therefore they're part of the natural dialogue with the teachers and the support staff. So that's brought a real cohesion with the parents and the staff in terms of children's learning. That's really, really a benefit of EFL.
EFL has been excellent to support the learning and the drive of our outside agencies, such as our speech and language therapists, such as our OTs. They're able to come into Tollgate, they're able to view the evidence that the team has collected for the week before or the day before. They're able to analyse that and really use the evidence in their session to further the learning of the children that they are supporting that day.
Where children are receiving therapies, the app is instrumental in that. For some, for example, in music therapy, the music therapist for our children with significant needs wants limited distractions. So we set up the app to capture the evidence, because he carefully wants to focus on children's engagement, the initiation, and we video it, and it's brought into our sessions on a Monday afternoon. It's played back and we discuss it. So we see what really motivates the children, and we translate that into the learning.
We want the interventions that we do here to generalize at home, and what Evidence for Learning has allowed me to do is for me to track the progress, work with parents. They're able to evidence their progression at home, and I am able to do the same here, and we're able to just work collaboratively alongside Martin, alongside the teachers, and I just think it puts parents at ease, because they can see what we're doing here as the day progresses, how their child's doing. So yeah, it puts them at ease in terms of a speech and language perspective, because obviously when you're away from your child, you're wondering what's going on with intervention, and with some of our children, it takes a while to generalize. But what Evidence for Learning is put them at ease, and they're able to say, oh, I really like the way you did so and so. I tried to do my own bucket group at home. Or for example, this is Anisha doing the same type of like stop and start movement, cause and effect movements. And we see that, and it's amazing. Like those small milestones are really big progress for some of these children. I also use it personally as just a way to look at my outcome measures. So for example, when I'm looking at my interventions, it's a way for me to just kind of look at where I need to go. Do I carry on with this intervention, give it 6 more weeks? Do I modify it? Do I completely change discourse and change direction? So I think from a speech and language perspective, it's just made my job so much more easier, so much more effective, and I really enjoy using it.
The NHS as well uses our evidence. We send it to them. They would discuss ways of how we could adjust our provision to meet our children's needs. So it's a collaboration. We work collaboratively.
The Evidence for Learning app helps us to kind of correlate and verify what we're doing, ultimately as practitioners, as kind of healthcare practitioners, ensuring that we work on the same goals that have been kind of drawn up and written up by other professionals. So it really just helps us have a frame of reference to ensure that we're working and providing a service that really fits in line with what the child needs at that particular time.
As a whole school, what EFL has actually done in terms of our pedagogical approach is we've been able to use it as a training tool. We've been able to develop our teachers. We've been able to develop our support staff. We're able to use the evidence that we get through EFL and say to the teachers, look, this child has made progress. Look how this teacher has questioned this child, or look how this teacher has supported this child with resourcing, or look how this parent has been able to advise the teacher at home, has been able to advise the parent. So it's now embedded within our approach in terms of standards, questioning, our learning objectives, our curriculum content, and we couldn't do that before we had this app. What we want for the children in mainstream at Tollgate is obviously repetition and rehearsal of key skills. So knowing more and remembering more through rehearsal. And we build our mainstream curriculum that way. Because we have a resource provision, we do not want anything different for our children's resource provision. We want the same curriculum approach. And what EFL does for the children in the resource provision is we're able to apply the same mantra, where the children know more, remember more through rehearsal, because the videos, the evidence that we collect, the team are able to go over that and then embed that into the next stage of learning.
And they're making progress because they're ready for the next stage,
Yeah.
because we have the evidence to show it, and our teachers are pushing them on to the next level when they are ready, and Evidence for Learning is letting us know exactly when they're ready.
And all children, not just in the mainstream, but in the resource provision, are making rapid and sustained progress because of that.
Evidence for Learning has developed our staff incredibly well. It's built up those pedagogical conversations using the evidence collected on Evidence for Learning. Our TAs are now talking pedagogically with the teachers. They're reflecting on their own practice, as well as reflecting on the individual needs of the individual learners after each session.
I think it's a great tool to help visualize strategies for everybody to use, because having a report about a child and their thing, you have these preconceptions of what to do, but having this portal of evidence and seeing these sessions and how they access learning helps us, helps OTs, helps everybody involved have a better idea of how to assess it, review it, and then go back and just come up with an overall plan for everybody to...
And it helps them alter their communication. For example, like Brian said, if you see a child like a niche on paper, you might not know what to do. But if you're an OT or a teacher, for example, and you think, okay, this is what the speech and language therapist did. She minimized her language, she got down to the child's level, she was able to use different sensory materials. They might think to bring that into their session and carry that forward.
In our whole school CPD, we use the evidence from Evidence for Learning as a tool, so we discuss it. Our CPD concentrates on how can we improve provision for our children. So the very evidence that we have on the system, we use our own children, and they become meaningful case studies for us. So then we can discuss it, and staff can actually begin to reflects on practice and how best to improve practice. We use the very videos in our coffee mornings for parents. I ask for permission and parents give me permission, and I use a snapshot of a video to explain some of the SEN jargon and just to demystify aspects around SEN.
Also for annual reviews, we've used them in annual reviews. For example, when we're looking at the targets of annual reviews, it's become an effective tool in the way that we modify those targets, or we say, you know what, this child can actually do this now, and here's evidence for it at school. Some cases, the child does not do that, the same targets at home. So we're able to evidence that, and that enables parents to think, okay, you know what, they could do this target, let's actually think of another target, and use speech and language therapy in a different way to benefit them, you know, to benefit the child.
Basically, it provides a rich picture over time. And it is a platform for educational discourse, a tool for collaboration. We are educationalists. We rely on clinicians, and the clinicians rely on us. And what better use of using evidence that is school-based to have a discussion, and so that it mitigates time wasting, that we just zone into what are the strengths, what are the small steps we need to develop, and we work in collaboration with families.
Also developing ambition in the curriculum, and I think the app has really helped to channel that.
It has, because it has helped us through the evidence profile our children, knowing the learning characteristics of each pathway. And we are now able to move children between the pathways and not wait for the end of an academic year to say, this child belongs there. We look at the evidence and we say, a child needs to progress to become a formal learner, because ultimately we want our children to be independent learners. And so the evidence is used as a discussion. I'm fortunate to be on SLT, so I take the evidence to SLT to say, I'm considering speaking to this parent for a child to move into a new pathway.
So, and by a pathway there, you mean for a formal learner here, it's actually accessing far more of the mainstream lesson.
Yes.
Which I understand that.
Okay.
And if you could just sum up, for you, what's the most important thing that it's done?
It's just brought learning to the forefront, and it has removed the care model of education. We're constantly talking about learning of all our pupils and having those ambitious expectations of all children. It's developed a tighter relationship. I don't know if the word tight is appropriate, but a more pedagogical relationship between support staff and teachers. It's helped us to empower our parents. It's helped us to have more efficient links with clinicians, because they can look at evidence, diagnose or help us refine our practice, and just give us simple 3 steps or 4 steps, and it makes it easier. Filling in a referral form, writing it all out, doesn't give you the picture.
The support staff, I think for their practice, I think the support staff could not do without Evidence for Learning now. It's really given them a focus in what they do with the children. It's been able to focus their pedagogical sort of knowledge that they give to the parents. It's been able to really focus their conversation around learning with the parents, the staff, the children. So in everything that they do, EFL underpins their conversation and their approach and their teaching. So again, I really can't stress enough how important it is to our standards at Tollgate.
We're very conscious about teacher workload as well, because tracking and identifying and making sure that progress for all our pupils we send is appropriate is very time consuming. And before, we were reinventing the wheel by all this observational data, support staff going around with clipboards and time consuming events that, our feedback from the chalk face in the classrooms was there must be a better way of doing this. And there must be a clearer way of planning children's developmental needs, because we know that learning for all pupils, regardless of learning needs, goes in many forms. It has a breadth. It goes, so it doesn't go in a linear fashion. Evidence for learning is very clear. Being child-centred, it looks at all the areas within the engagement model and really supports all key workers in that child's profile, whether it be the teacher, whether it be the support staff, whether it be the parent, whether it be an additional person in the classroom, to really focus on what are the exact learning needs of that child. And it acts as a guide in a very positive, child-centred fashion to really support that child's learning. We use the videos to do CPD with our staff, and it's bespoke and it's there one-to-one with the support staff and the teachers. It's proved really beneficial. So we've brought that as a training tool across all 8 schools, and the feedback we've had has been really positive.
What would be your advice to a new trust who's considering taking this on but not really sure about how to take the first step?
Okay, I would say to be brave and bold and innovative, because our starting point was the learning needs of the children. And quite clearly, it was about the learning. And I wanted their learning to have as much challenge as their mainstream peers. And to do that, our staff needed support through CPD, they needed encouragement, but they also needed a way of working that was really child-centred, that focused in on the learning needs of each individual child. And that's what EFL brought us. So I would say from that very first step and that courage of thinking different and going into this way of working, the benefits have been enormous. So I would say to any other CEO or any other kind of head teacher, it's the way forward. It really is really child-centred, but also teacher-friendly.
Yeah, thank you, Tom.